Hi, my name is Benedict. What we're going to do this time is look at the new Phase Plant synthesizer from KiloHearts. Now, it's a funny name. Funny, hilarious, funny, strange. If that's a problem, I don't really think so. I kind of wonder why they chose a name that's basically Phase Plant. Maybe it was just because they thought it was hilarious, funny. Maybe it's because they thought this is make or break for us. If we don't sell this synth, then we're done for. I don't know. It's a strange name, in part because it's a novelty name, and you expect that out of synthetic stuff. But I mean, I made an effect called 2 as in I had a picture of a comb because it was a comb filter. That's the kind of thing you did in synthetic, but Phase Plant, to me, kind of looks like it's going up against something like Falcon or Omnisphere. Maybe not as full on as that, but it kind of looks like it's going in that direction. Or, of course, Zebra. So to have a funny name, I don't know, Zebra's kind of strange, but Falcon, Omnisphere, they're these big sort of grand names, and Phase Plant kind of isn't that, but doesn't really matter. Now, in Reason, of course, because I do everything in Reason. The first thing you notice with this is that when you launch the instrument, there's nothing. You're just listening to the sound of my very noisy keys on the Panorama P6. That kind of suggests to me, again, that this is really going up against a real sound designer's instrument, like Falcon. Now, nothing wrong with that. I would be very interested in getting my hands on Falcon, but there's no demo. But this might suggest that this isn't immediately going to appeal to people who are looking at Silent or Dune or something like that with a whole pile of presets. So basically we've got 3 parts to this, nicely named generators, effects, and modulators. Effects do feel a little funny out of the gate because they're purely all the snap-ins and various other effects that KiloHearts have made. But they're not there by default in the instrument, or at least they're not here in my install. I downloaded a couple, so you can see them here. Apparently, if you open a preset that has something, I haven't opened a single preset on this. If you open a preset that has one of these other devices that you don't own, it'll actually function, but you can't change it. So that is pretty cool, and that's pretty fair. So if a patch designer has, say, used Faturator, but you don't own it, you still get that patch fully functioning. You just can't change that part of it. So they can't get much fairer than that. The slightly odd thing about this is that unless you've got some or several of these effects here, you've got a synth that with a whole section you can't turn off. It's empty. There's nothing you can do with it. However, as a business decision, it's probably a pretty darn good one because we're constantly faced with this great big empty gap that makes us think, oh, what can I put in there? And there are a few things that you can do, like you can put in a filter of some kind, an effect of some kind, and you can actually make it polyphonic. So normally if you plug your guitar into a guitar pedal, an overdrive, that overdrive is overdriving the whole guitar's output. This is like, when you put it into poly, it's like having an output for every single string and overdriving each string individually, which of course means that you can really change the sound or the feel. So you could drive each string an awful lot harder without that awful sort of kind of noise. So that is a nice feature of it. It's not one I've played with, but it is kind of a cool feature. So we'll take this out of the game for the moment. We've got generators. With each generator, they go into a group, and each group has an output. Obviously, the output's the way of sending it to things. You can send that output to the various lanes, to the master or a sideband. We're not getting too much into those things. I mostly want to show you how this thing sounds and the immediate things that you can do with it. So, not hearing sound. There we go, now I've got my MIDI attached. Nice healthy output. The usual contenders. Double click to send anything back to a default situation, so nice and easy. We can sync. Now the thing to note is this has got a really nice sound. It's not too smooth, but it doesn't sound papery. One of the frustrations is out of the box, sometimes Reason can be a little papery, but this doesn't sound papery, but nor does it sound like you've run out of options because they've rolled things off. It works nicely. With each output, it comes with your ADSR envelope, already wired up. We could remove it. Obviously you've got to work out how to do this. And again, I'll say this really does seem, Phase Plant really seems to be aimed at a fairly knowledgeable sound designer, because it allows you to change your architecture, as we will see. Like, we can add ourselves a second oscillator. Now this oscillator is actually not going into the output. It's just sitting here. We've got a couple of options. We can drag it up here. Now this shows that this plus this goes into this. Let's just nice sound. The way that it beats is natural and very pleasing. Each instrument can have, each oscillator can have many layers of detune. Getting a wee bit loud. Just pull that back. It does have a healthy volume on this thing. One thing it noticed it doesn't have is an overall master volume control, but no, I'm not too worried about that. Oh, really important, I forgot the most important feature. It actually comes with a game of Space Invaders. Or Phase Invaders, as the case may be. Not good if you're prone to getting distracted. Come here, fellow, come here. Die! Anyway, we'll stop that. But it's amusing. Now, one thing that's really good about this, a lot of synths make a lot of promises with regards to this being able to modulate that, everything can modulate everything, but often what they mean is everything can modulate things except for audio, whereas this allows audio modulation of almost everything. That's really rather cool. So we can click, this gives us all our possible destinations. Hello. So we can now see, this is highlighted. So it tells us that it's got phase modulation, and we can see that it's coming from there. Cool. Phase modulation actually being FM. If I want to get rid of that, I can double click it, gone. Click again. If we went to that's technically real FM, so we're modulating the frequency the pitching of this first oscillator with the second oscillator. But as you can hear, sounds dubious. There's shift. Oh, sorry, I keep thinking to drag. I have not read the manual, and this is very deliberate. Now, these days, when I approach a device not because I won't read the manual. I would read the manual if I get it. But part of the ease of use should be that with 30 years in, I should be able to look at any reasonable device and go, that's what this does. If I look at it and go, WTF, it means that it's poorly designed. If it's not easy for me, it's poorly designed. Everything here seems very self-evident. I work it out pretty quickly, what's what. Let's just get rid of the detune there. Shift and harmonic, I'm going to be honest and say I don't quite know what that does. But it appears to move this, each harmonic. If you're moving harmonics, that is not the same as moving octaves. The first couple will be octaves, but then it goes into 7 semitones, 3 semitones. It gets smaller and smaller. But harmonic, as I say, doesn't. Or if you've got 0 harmonic, it turns itself off. The logic of that, I'm not entirely sure, unless. There we go. Just solved my problems. I was expecting it to go minus. So you can get into the nasty noise arena pretty easily. But you can, of course. Back to 1. I can turn an oscillator off if I just don't want to hear it. But if I didn't want that second oscillator to be audible, I just drag it outside of the output. So you see it's not outputting, but my modulation routing is still the same. If I want more detail, I can actually so we've got again, need to read the manual on that one to be sure. It did offer me phase jitter. That doesn't seem to have an issue there, so my guess there is probably randomizing phase on start. Most digital synths will always start at the same phase, like the same point in our waveform, whereas a classic analog synth will start sort of anywhere, wherever that oscillator just happened to be in its waveform at the time you hit the key, which is part of why they can tend to have a warmer sound, but then a less aggressive start to the sound, particularly for bass sounds, unless you're looking at something like a Roland SH, where they really had one oscillator outputting several different waveforms, so they always started at the same point, which is part of why they seem to have a grabby attack. Let's say we don't want that to continue to we can now add ourselves a modulator. Now these are like a CV modulator if we're thinking in terms of reason. We can say, okay, let's just build ourselves a wee envelope and assign this to level here. Assign, let's go to 50%, because the level of that oscillator is actually able to go all the way up to 200. So we're going to get into ugly town. Bit much? See, so I can actually control the total output of this modulation. I've also got a few options as to unipolar, bipolar, or inverted. So I can turn my envelope upside down. If that doesn't make a lot of sense to you, don't fuss about it for the moment. Generally, an envelope will be unipolar. Like a picture. Pretty easy to very quickly get into relatively ugly sounds, but that is the nature of FM. So subtlety is kind of your key. Oh, I know why we've got some of that. I forgot that I had unison on. That baby thing was because I had everything in unison. There's another way to get unison, and that's across the whole synth here. So you can do it at the oscillator or across the whole synth. However, notice DSP is a bit nasty. I should imagine that's because it's having to process everything that's happening in this environment and multiplying it by 4. It does sound nice, but if we put 4 back here, 4 back there, our DSP is significantly lower. It's not the lowest DSP in the world, that's for sure, but it's far from the highest. For the nice quality, it's not a bad trade-off in terms of DSP. Obviously, I'd like to see less, but it's not a bad trade-off. It's not too terrible at all. Just for point of reference, it's about a 5-6-year-old computer with an i7, 16 gig RAM, so it's a powerful little machine, but it's old. So we get nice FM. We could add ourselves another oscillator. One thing that's slightly funny is that tuning goes in semitones. It doesn't offer you octaves. So it's nothing wrong with it. It's just not as easy as if it had a knob that said octave. Again, this one's outside of the so we'll take this fella and send him to here as well. So here that's happening permanently. Let's give ourselves another envelope. No sustain on that fella. %, pull that down to 0. So we can start to get brassy. With strange tunings, you get into ugly tone. Which is how you get into clangorous sounds with FM. Now, if I had snap-ins here, reverbs, choruses, what have you. I don't. That's their frequency shifter, which, let me tell you, is not a pitch shifter. But to be fair, let's grab ourselves some that I do own. Here are some I prepared earlier. So that's KiloHearts. This is a rack extension, but it's the same guts. And we'll give ourselves a delay. These things are annoying. Okay, so everything here now will have this chorus and delay on it. But nothing really wrong with that. If I want to get rid of one of these, I just turn it off. Here had a beautiful smooth sound. I recently looked again at Surge, which is an equally digital instrument, and I love the sound of that because it's really old school, mid-80s digital. It's got this grainy, gritty sound, which I think is great and is lovely on a record. But this is really ultra smooth. So it's a sophisticated sound, but it still feels thick. I like Zebra. I don't own Zebra. I would own Zebra, but I don't own Zebra. But I don't think the sound is quite as thick as this. Okay, that's going from feel and memory. But when I play with Zebra, I like it. But it's neither got the thin, grainy digital sound of an 80s type instrument, nor the really smooth, rich, syrupy feel of, say, this. It's not to say this is the best sounding synth in the universe, but it's pretty darn good for its price. It's not cheap, but if you're looking at Zebra or something like this, it is very attractive pricing on the case of KiloHearts. Let's move that. Now let's look at modulating this guy instead. So just like with a real FM synth, like a DX7 type synth, the way you arrange what modifies what really changes the sound. So as an FM synth, I've really dug into that first. On the pretty end, very, very nice. On the ugly end, manage that quite nicely too. Let's drag this out. Build ourselves a pad. So what's that decay time? 10 seconds, tiny bit short, guys. Would be nice to have that a lot longer. This is where having your unisons get nice. Or ugly, yeah, depending on which way you want to approach that. Now, even though we're getting a lot of really high overtones there, the way that the system's managing them is really quite pleasing. Yes, I think there is some sort of Nyquist bounce back, but the way that it's handling it is pleasant. We could get clever and put it through this phase distortion thing just seems like some sort of overdrive. Ugly. That's the way it's handling its oscillators. Really very, very pleasing. So let's kill this off for now. Bye-bye. You all are wondering what its filter is like. Drag that before. Off the bat, I don't think it's the most powerful manually meaty filter I've ever heard. As soon as you add in resonance, its charms definitely become apparent. Definitely a digital synthesizer's filter. We're not going to say up front that that's really that's a something or other filter. It's not. There are ways we can obviously modify it a little bit. Adding bits of drive, that's before filter or after filter. Obviously it makes it pretty unruly. So that's quite pleasant. Let's take one of our envelopes here, attach that to cutoff. Now you can see that this is actually showing us what's happening. Don't need that envelope anymore, so we'll kill him off. Let's have an LFO. And we will send him to detune. By default it's a very large amount, but that's because the range of our oscillator is plus minus 60 semitones, so 10% of that is a lot of semitones, is six semitones, so that's a pretty long way to vibrato ourselves. You can sync your oscillator, your LFO, haven't bothered looking at it, it'll be all the usual suspects. We can set ourselves to unipolar. If you're one of those people like a guitarist who can only ever vibrato above the pitch. But in synths, I like it best when we go both sides of the pitch. Otherwise, you end up dragging your sound sharp in the mix, which is fine, but can get a bit much if you like vibrato as much as I do. But one of the concerns here is just that you just have to get a little bit used to the depth or the throw of the modulation when it comes to pitch. But because you've got 3 places to control it, not really that much of an issue. Yep, handled it even in the middle of this. Let's just pull that right down. So I want a second oscillator. Got a pair of them here. Let's just type in 10% there. Now we can add so we can use this multiple times. So that one's 1.8, we might want to pull that back. We're going to move that. I shall pop him back in, undo my distort, pop him here. We can overdrive, we can saturate, fold back. Good old-fashioned hard clip. So that's very much going to depend on the sound that you're running and the sound that you want. I may show you some, but I'm personally not a big fan of the big wow kind of thing that everybody's doing. So I'm sure you'll see like 11 billion videos on the web soon enough with Phase Plant doing a lot of that thing. It's not really my thing. I'm always looking to see how you can make a synth sound beautiful. Bearing in mind I've got no reverb in this. Let me just try something. Probably going to be overkill. Cool. So we can use something to control. Not quite sure why I'm getting pops there. So again here how the filter does actually improve as you It always seems to be with this mod wheel, so maybe it's a thing. So as I increase this jitter, I see. So if we don't have anything attached to that, if we don't have anything modulating it, then we can actually set that up and that sounds nicer. So I'm assuming, again without reading the manual, that that allows you to control where phase comes in. Because that definitely sounds a lot nicer. A mild filter, but it took me a little bit to work this out, but you've got note here. Let's say I want that on the front because that's a pretty basic sort of a function. We can set this to this. %. So watch this travel. So it gives us keyboard tracking. So quite capable in terms of analog sounds. No doubt you'll be saying, but Benedict, where's the bass sounds? Here we might say, all right, we'll use the master control. Just a bit more welly. Remember, there's a chorus and delay, post instrument. Filter doesn't seem to self-oscillate. Again, just a nice comfortable feel there. But we can definitely amplify it up. But again, in a really pleasant sort of a way. And there's of course nothing to stop you from putting another filter after this, so you can go filter, distortion, filter, give them the same modulations, and got a ladder. different filter types. They're really EQs more than filter types. Basic, not showing any really weird vowel filters or anything like that. That's sort of a limit. I don't know whether they've got plans for weirder filters. But you know what? A lot of the time I find I don't use those other kinds of filters as much as you think you're going to need them. You can always make more complex filters out of other things. That's a pretty nice sound. It's got a nice, smooth, creamy feel to it. Are you going to throw out your MS-20 for it? Not at all. But is that going to help you make nice mixes? Oh, definitely is. But all comes down to what you put where. But look at this. We can take the output of our filter and assign it to something. We can now take the output of our overdrive and assign that to something too. Let's assign it to this. It's going to be horrible. Oh yes, that's nice. I'm frightened already. I'm showing you that because this is not an easy thing to do in most synths. This is not a thing I could do in Reason very easily at all. Thor gives me a certain amount of ability to do it, but I can't make it sound like I'm strangling a cat. That's actually a really nice thing that this will do. So let's kill off our distortion. Kill off one of our analogs. And that strange modulation. Should kill off that one as well. We have a noise. Lets you change the slope. White through to brown. You can make it stereo. It's already stereo because of that chorus and delay. Or chorus anyway. But you can, some of the modes. We can have some control over how our noise behaves. So we can go from very coarse noise and where was it? So, and then smoother. Perfect for spaceships. A pretty versatile noise device. Sampler, we'll look at sampler next. Again, does nothing until you drag it up. So if you're not comfortable or confident, you've always got to look at, well, what's this doing? So we've got this going to here, which is going to here. It does show you what's going on, but the more you understand synthesis, the better it's going to be. Sample, again, does nothing when you load it up. It does come with a whole pile of samples. Exactly what that's doing, I'm not 100% sure, but the fact that you can control it's interesting. So the usual stuff plus these harmonics and shifts, which are interesting. Got a few things. What have we got here? Violin, arco, B4. Usual sample things of it, just the sound is faster when you go up the keys. We can have a little bit of control how loops happen. We can turn them off. They can be infinite, as in going forever. They can be just sustain. I haven't read the book on that. Forward and back means that they will go good in some situations, not a lot of the time, or just reverse. With your sustain or infinite loop, oh I see, sustain, now I get it, this is going back to the real logic of it, that it will loop whilst you've got sustain on, okay, no it's not doing that. It used to be the idea that sustain would loop whilst you're holding sustain, and when you let go and it was in the release mode that it would travel to the end. That looks like it does it, but I don't know, I'm probably missing something. But your loops are quite controllable and they give you a view so you can see how well your loops might add up to each other, plus you've got the ability to crossfade. So a certain amount of control. It's not the world's most powerful sample player, but it's not meant to be. Of course, you can add up layers. Let's pull ourselves in another sampler, rack it up here, find ourselves a sample that we might like. Let's have a piano. C3. All the usual things that we'll have with straight samples. And it's up to you. You can get as interesting as you want. Let's cello now. Really nice playable instrument. Oh, that's why it's mine. Is it super realistic? Oh god, no, not meant to be. Off, obviously. Oh no, it's there, it's just not assigned to anything. Let's assign this to 1.8. Let's see if shift helps me any. Does a bit. Nicest instrument, but just grabbing samples. So there are quite a few things built in here. Transients, what are they? Oh, just the usual bottle. And not a nice combination. Oh, let's go with that. Obviously. Starts a bit useless. Great, no, not really. Don't get too excited about their samples. You can look at your own. That's one I made earlier. This is out of reason. I can't remember what I used to make it, but it's kind of cool. Nice gritty little string sound. Let's take this other sample out and go grab ourselves something. String drive. Why not? We can now take this This is really putting it into ugly tone. Again with the mod wheel popping, not sure why, maybe it only happens when I'm recording. So we can take any sample that we've got and use it to FM or some other unpleasant thing inside the system, which is rather cool. Retro wavers are like that. So a sample can be used as a modulator and a carrier. So you can FM with samples. You can FM from a sample to an oscillator to a sample. You can FM, as we saw, from an output back to itself. Almost anything can go anywhere that you want to put it, that you can justify putting it. You won't always get nice results, but that's the nature of this kind of synthesis. Overdriven cello. Kind of cool. So if this is not a thing that you've had a lot to do with, I don't blame you, because there has not been a lot of easy ways to do this. This does it nicely. And yes, it kind of sounds horrible. But within the right mix, that would actually sound really good. It's going to work nicely within the mix. So it's all comes down to what you want to do, what you want to put where. Now there's no reason I shouldn't be able to take this . Feels very natural. No matter what we throw at this, it feels natural. It doesn't go thin or brittle or crunchy or any of those things. And that's a really nice thing if we then get back into turning on other unpleasant effects. Ring rod. So oversampling, or however they're managing this, is really quite pleasant. So it's a very civilized sort of a sound. Let's kill this and kill this. Oops, turned off my group. Obviously, with groups, you can have several groups. So we could build 3 or 4 synthesizer sounds as layers all up against each other. If you don't understand what that means, it doesn't matter because you're not ready to do it. I'll take my wavetable. So the usual thing. Brass. If we take our, I shall apply ourselves another envelope. Yeah. $100. Let's default to 1. Now, wavetables, by their very nature, tend to sound pretty horrible. The fact that a lot of people want them to be very unpleasant means that they tend to be really unpleasant these days. That's sort of the fashion. Now let's turn our envelope upside down. Again, we've still got the advantage of a chorus and a delay there. But we can unison. It's a lot more noticeable without the chorus on already. And of course, we can now a little bit of vibrato on that. Wavetable does seem to use more CPU, but you honestly don't always need unison, and especially if you're unisoning and FMing, it often just makes it too ugly. You can do it after the fact, which is where these effects, or just having effects out in the real world. That's what a real FM synth sounds like. Give it a bit of love. So I spent a lot of time with it. I'll just run over the other things that it's got. So there's our 4 oscillators we've played with quite a bit. Distortion we played with a bit. Filter, one type. Would be nice to see some more. It also would be kind of nice to see some different distortion types, you know, other ugly ways to make it sound more ugly, because they can be really useful. We've got a group, which is just making another one of these. Like I said, we can make 2 sounds all inside the one box, a layer. Auxiliary, which appears to be the ability to take audio and actually route it out to somewhere else, or from or to. It's lane 1. I haven't read the thing on it, so I'm not going to go anywhere with it, but it's obviously the ability to do more complex things. Mix. This just means I can take this mix and do things with it, send it other places, like use it to modulate something. Let's use it to modulate. Oh, I'm sorry, I keep thinking to drag and drop. Let's use it to modulate this. Wonderfully horrid. Cool. This is what happens when you use samples or so we get somewhat strange results. Kind of cool. Enough effects, and you've got a really nice washy sound there. So the mix just allows you to route things to different places. Outputs is just another one of these fellas. So if you're running lots of groups. You can control lots of things. So that's for when you get into the bigger picture things. But as a straight synth, it's pretty modular because you can send things kind of wherever you want within reason. Sound, perhaps not as broad as a Zebra or something like that, but then Zebra tends to have the same tricks on each oscillator. This is sort of the same, but as I say, it's got a really nice kind of warm, elastic, yes, it's a digital synth, but it's a warm, elastic sound that doesn't get crunchy, harsh, or overly muted. It doesn't get unruly, but no doubt with effects and processors and stuff you can make it do that. But I think it's, if you're somebody who wants to get in and play around with this, let's say we just swap these around. So using the wavetable to FM into a you can get into making your own wavetables, and that's pretty intricate. It seems that you've got a fair amount of control over what you draw. How we draw all of these things, I'm not sure. Aha. Obviously we'd want to get right into this. So it gives you a full additive synth that you can use in terms of your wavetables. So that could be as simple as making one wave shape, as I did there. So let's get rid of the okay, so that's the shape I just made. Right of it. Yeah, it's the odd man out. Pretty quiet. And if you know how to make sounds, if you understand your harmonics and how to make additive sounds, that's really pretty powerful. So you can do the same with your, well, within reason, you've got a fair amount of control over your LFO shapes. So you're not just stuck with the three that they show you there. You can get a lot more complex with those, as well as a random, which is like a sample and hold type thing. And getting right into making this. It's got 256 frames. So let's just have a look if we can paste, can we copy? Bring in your own samples and stuff, select all. It's probably going to be all of them. Various effects to process things. We can normalize. It's good. Not quite sure why we can't copy at all. Anyway, there must be some way to copy that, put it somewhere else, and then probably do morphs and what have you between them. So you can put things into all kinds of interesting places. And So that lets you morph. So if we say done, we'll put that back to our envelope. So even though it's quite simple, it's also fairly beautiful. As I said before, like all things sort of FM and digital synth, subtlety is often the best way out. Unless you're after full-blown ugly territory, a bit of subtlety is normally the nicest way to go. And you can use your filters to bring out particular things if you want them. It's just really nice. So I'll say with Phase Plant, if you're after the biggest number of features, bells and whistles on paper, probably not the one for you. If you're after an instrument that's got a really nice sound and feel and is incredibly versatile as to what you put where, let's take that out. You can just experiment and drag things around without any real problem at all. We might say, okay, let's use whatever's coming out of the filter to modulate our pitch. It's modulating itself, so of limited use. Let's modulate something different. Don't understand what this does. That's a little bit crunchy. So that ability to try things and go, yeah, look, I don't like that, and get rid of it really quickly and easily is good. If you're used to having a standard mod matrix, like if you're a reason man, like in Thor, you know, one of those things that's laid out, etc., so it's the same sort of thing, then initially you may struggle. But if you're a seasoned sound designer, you're going to have a sense of an overview of what your patch looks and feels like anyway, and the fact that it's got all these guides so you can see what's controlling and what is controlled by something relatively easily. Audio modulations, CV rate modulations, it's all there. You can see what's happening, and it does show movement. So you can largely see what's going on, and you should be able to work that out pretty darn easily. If you're not then go back and do some bass learning. I think it's a really interesting synth. If you do happen to own or plan to own some of these, then obviously you can get into making all kinds of interesting things here as well. But I'll that out because I don't see the need. So it's our core sound. If we did have these guys locked into here, this is what we do here. Not going through presets, obviously lots of them, probably really good. I would have loved to have worked on this instrument to do patch design for them. I think it's a really charming instrument at a very good price. If you can restrain yourself from having to buy these, because you really don't need to, chances are you've got a whole lot of outboard effects, then you don't have to. But if you're going to buy a Zebra, which I think is $199 and this is $169, there's $30 you can throw at a few of these anyway. It's one of those instruments that you could use to a fair extent as a center of a sound, your sound. Would you use it for absolutely everything? You could. I could make a whole record with this and be real pleased. But I think you probably want some other flavors as well. But it's a nice flavor. It's one worth having, I think, if you're in the market for a synth. But if you have not taught yourself how synthesis really works, if you don't understand how this goes together, you've probably stopped watching me by now because you'll think I'm boring as fuck. Your business. But it will go better for you if you have a better understanding. But if you genuinely want to have a better understanding and put the time and energy into it, rather than just doing random shit, then this would be a very nice sandpit in which to learn. So, good synth, really nice sound, very capable. Is it the best synth ever to grace the world? No. Is it the worst? Fuck no. It's a really good synth. And if you are interested, at least grab the demo, spend some time playing with it. You do need to focus your time because it only gives you 10 days in which to make up your mind, and then it goes. But if you apply yourself, you're going to come out of this pretty quickly knowing whether it's a thing you'd want to own or not. And I would like to own this. If KiloHearts, if you actually happen to be watching this, and I'll encourage you to, then if you're looking for more patches, I would be delighted to do your contra to make you a nice big bank of sounds to get my sticky fingers on this for good. Hope you've enjoyed this. Hope you found this useful. Thank you very much for your time.